And so you're working on this amazing project that I'm a big, huge fan of, called the Oneness Academy, where you have taken it upon yourself to free humanity from their secret enslavement by addressing the children first and raising our sons and daughters in the way that we feel is appropriate as far as for the growth and evolution of our humanity. And I have a few questions for you, but I'd like for you to kind of get a little bit out there as far as
how this all started.
Yeah, how did it start? Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Focus on that.
So, how this all started, how any great thing has ever started from me, was really inspired by my son. And it was because Ethan was not like what you would call neurotypical children. And it was very difficult for me to put him in a public school setting. And it wasn't for lack of trying too. So we paid for private school, and we put him in Montessori schools, right? But it was really difficult for him to strive because at home, I was already homeschooling him. And when he went into public school, he was so academically advanced, but still learning social things. And for someone who's very sensitive to social construct and to people, in a classroom with 30 kids, it's very chaotic. And there's arbitrary rules he has to follow, and there are rules that are not typically set at home. And the way children interact, it's very intense. You know, if you ever do a meditation and you try in your mind's eye to go back to the moment when you were 5 years old, the world's a very intense place. And there's information overload. For the most part, kids, when interacting with adults, feel very confused because they sense communication conflict from adults and, for lack of a better word, hypocrisy. So they don't know, they're trying to make sense of a world. And before they can really make sense of the reality surrounding them, we're shoving academics down their throat. And that can be the means of understanding them and their blockages, but not the destination, not the end goal. And with traditional schooling, academics is the end goal. So in turn, at home, I realized I was using academics as a means of understanding my son, his capacity, his interests, his passions, and where he needs improvement on, but it was never the means. And so at home, I was reading books to him, and then one day we realized when he was 2, he could read. And we knew that because when I would say a certain word in the book, where is the word such a, and he would point to it. And then he would go on the computer and type words in. So we knew at that point he was literate by the time he was 2. And he was building structures and things like that. But I think where he became afraid of the world is when he was being socially pushed into environments with other children and adults that are typically expected of them. That just made him very afraid, and in some ways kind of regress. And so we wanted to keep him at home and nurture him and not overwhelm him and overprocess him. When we dropped him off at public school, he would just cry the entire day. And my wake-up call is when I went to go pick him up, and the teacher told me that he almost escaped the school grounds. And right outside the school grounds is the expressway. And in the playground, there's a fence with a gap about this big. And he was wedging his body under the gap. The teacher said no one's ever tried to escape, but my son's an escape artist. Like he will escape anything. And his body was halfway under the fence when they caught him. So I just to imagine what happened if for 3 seconds more they didn't catch him. He would just run out to the expressway. And that very day I pulled him out because I could never live with myself if that one time he escapes, you know.
How old was he?
At that time he was 4. He was 4, and he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And they had he wasn't doing nap time, and they were forcing nap times, and he knew the math, he knew the days of the week, he knew how to spell, and they were working on A's, and then when he wanted to go outside and be in nature stimulation, they wouldn't allow for that. And so there was a lot of things working against him. So then I brought him home, and at that point I didn't really have the intention to homeschool the way that I am now, but working with my son, I just kept teaching him academically, but just at his pace, at his comfort level, while making him feel safe. And really, most children, they comply because of force. Like, you are forcing them to comply. But at the end of the day, their soul essentially doesn't feel safe. Which is why they have a certain psychology develop when they're away from you, when they're in school grounds, why they listen to a teacher and don't listen to you. Like, all of that shifts around, and it really messes their paradigm of the world, right? So I wanted to assist my son as much as possible. So we started homeschooling him, and he was 2 grades advanced, right? But then there's other therapies that he needed that we brought therapists in, and we want to give him the best chances of really succeeding here in a way that makes him feel ready, instead of like shoving him out, making him feel safe and secure and not overwhelmed or overstimulated, and then develop a lifelong anxiety of the world. And that's what I was trying to prevent. Then I had my daughter, and then I just naturally just started homeschooling her, and then it just kind of just kept going, and she started, her capacity to learn was really great. And I found that to be true with every kid that came to my house. Their capacity to learn was huge, as long as they had attention, as long as they felt safe, as long as that wasn't the focus and there was a purpose to it. So the reason why most kids check out is you're shoving math and arithmetic down their throat, and they're not understanding the purpose of it. And it's for you to have the awareness of, I just want to see that you can do it, and it's your best. And so I can communicate and write code to you, and so I can write a secret message to you, and everything is play, and you keep everything as a game, and then they're understanding the purpose of what they're learning. Then they start to excel and learn really fast. So my daughter is 4, and she started to sound out words already, right? But more importantly than that, I use the academics to address frustration, anger, comparing themselves to others, right? Losing with grace, winning with grace, right? Competition and collaboration. So I will use academics simply because why not? They have the capacity, right? But that's not my end goal. My end goal is to use that as a tool to get them to think for themselves, to do their best, to not compare themselves to others, to manage frustration, to follow through, to finish what they started, right? And that is the goal that Oneness Academy really focuses on. So that's how that kind of started.
That's incredible. And so what, do you have some sort of order in which you teach things depending on their age, or how do you go about, do you take them out in nature a lot?
Yeah.
Tell us more about how you go about spreading your day.
Yeah. So the most important thing for me running the Oneness Academy is I go with the flow, meaning using my intuition to feel out the kids. And if they're on a roll with a certain style of teaching or projects, I will continue to pursue that. When they're starting to get over it, then I myself have to be flexible, and I have to flow with that. And so if I can feel in them there's a hunger to do something else, to do it in another way, that's my job to show them there are infinite ways to do something. Just like there's infinite ways to learn math, it doesn't have to be on paper. It could be in nature, it can be in the playground, it can be with each other, right? So as weather permits, as their mood permits, right? As the environment permits, I try to flow with that. So for example, with summer approaching now, right? Now we have the right weather to go outdoors more, right? And then we have more flow in terms of if we're following kind of the regimen that the rest of the world is following in terms of academics, then we take summer school instead of them being on iPad and watching TV all day long. We're going to focus on teaching them hygiene, doing home chores, folding clothes, things that are really important as a living skill that people can write essays and can't clean their rooms when they're 20. And that's completely backwards, right? Completely backwards. So what's the point of having a good resume if your mind, your heart, and your environment is in clutter because you never learned how to properly clean up after yourself, take joy and pride in it, and understand the purpose of it? It just seems backwards.
It seems to be always that's the foundation of where you start. You have to clean your outer environment so that you can organize your inner environment.
Right.
Even in that movie Limitless, when they took the pill, that was the first thing he did. He just cleaned his apartment.
Cleaned his apartment. Yeah, but that's really telling, right? Because essentially the paradigm is focus on the outside world. Just focus on the exterior accomplishments. And the interior doesn't matter. And so you develop a whole generation of kids who place no value on the work their mothers do. And they place no value on folding laundry. They place no value on washing their own dishes. The value is simply on paper. And that's illusionary, and so we do those things. We don't reject those things at all because they are useful tools. And I think where we've gotten lost in terms of academics is that they're the tools to help us work on the inner self. It's not to put focus on the outer self and stay there and continue to build outside like that. It's a belief system kind of built on a house of cards, and that's why kids really have anxiety when they are about to graduate high school because they're not ready.
They have no direction.
They're not ready. And the question is, why aren't they ready?
Yeah.
And that's the foundational problem, isn't it? And so they go on to college and live in dorms, can't stand their dorm mate because one lives like a slob. And so why? And so it's completely experimental what we're doing, right? But so far, intuitively, we feel the kids are happy. The feedback we get is they want to come every day, and on weekends they ask for a task. Really, essentially what they're doing is they're asking for a purpose.
Right.
And because every day we are focusing on a purpose of something. And so I used homework to bring out their mental limitations, belief systems that I can't, right? Or getting anger, and then through the anger they're manifesting wrist pain and that is really the focus. The writing and the arithmetic is simply a tool for me to access really what's going on inside.
That's incredible.
Yeah, right.
I'm a big fan of your work. I love it. We really need this right now. This is the time when we need it the most. I feel like it's going to, as we develop. So are you structuring, it seems like, to each individual child, depending on how they naturally flow and what their interests are, you stimulate them accordingly and kind of go from there as far as?
So during the school year, depending on their age range, we have them follow a flow of academics. That being said, anyone that needs more attention, we'll keep reviewing that until everyone feels really confident. So I try to work on a policy of no child left behind. So even if other kids are pretty well versed, but someone's a little behind, we're going to keep reviewing it until the collective consciousness in the classroom is confident before we move on. Before we move on, understanding is not enough. Then we work on the quality of the work. So this year we worked on our ABCs, our math, subtraction. I'm talking about the preschoolers, right? Summer, I'm not going to focus on excelling any further, but perfecting the quality of the work. So yeah, they can write A, B, and C's, but it's sloppy. And so I want them to take pride in doing their best. And just doing that and being good enough is something I want to, that every summer is what our goal is. And they know it too, and it resonates deep down inside. I'll give you an example of what happened yesterday. So one of the kids, we had a coloring assignment to do. And so remember, this is just a means to get to what we're trying to really get out of the kids, right? So we're doing a coloring assignment. Essentially, it's not about the assignment, right? And so long as the teachers know that, the moms know that. So we have them do this assignment where they have to match the numbers and the color, and he's getting very frustrated. He doesn't want to do it. So then he asks for help. So at that point, I allow his peers to jump in and help because I want to encourage kids to help one another. The issue is that in school, the source of help is always the teachers or teachers' aid. Kids don't help one another. And that's not taught or encouraged, right? So what happens? What happens is then you go to the playground setting and a kid falls down and no one does anything, right? Because they have no power access within themselves that I can help. And so I say, ask your neighbor for help. If you're finished with your work and you see someone that needs help, offer your help. Right? So I'm empowering them too. And that's really bizarre too.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm really blown away right now. I'm like, what?
What? You know, but that doesn't happen in traditional school setting. The only one allowed to help you is the authority figure, right? But that's exactly the problem. So he asked our friends to help, so some friends jumped in. And then I stopped it right away because he wasn't doing any of the work. And so when I stopped and said, that's enough help, he got really upset and he was crying. And I asked him, why are you crying? And he said, no one will help me. I said, do you know what help means? So this is the real lesson at the end of the day. It's not about the coloring.
How old is he?
He's 4.
Okay.
He's 4.
Okay.
And he said, no one would help me. I said, do you know what help means? Help means that someone comes in and helps you a little bit. They don't do all the work for you. And where you're suffering is that you think help means that they should do the work for you. But that's not help. Help means that you have to still do the work. You still have to do something, put something in. They can come and help you a little bit, but not take over and do all your work for you. That's not help. That's doing it for you. And it's as simple as that's indicative of the world probably not even understanding what the word help means.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly right.
That's exactly
that
right.
reminds me of when I was a kid. I was in 3rd grade and my dad helped me with a report. He did the thing, and it was a very impressive looking report, especially for an 8-year-old.
Yeah,
right.
But and you understood. Oh, that's what help looks like.
Right,
but
and then it's not right.
Not.
It's more like he was embarrassed of like what I would do on my own, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very very interesting with that way of thinking.
So what happens? So then you have a whole bunch of people growing up to be helpless.
Yeah. And then I have to learn to help myself as an adult, which is much harder. And so the homework was simply to bring out the real lesson at the end of the day, right? And so he got upset when I redefined help to him because he realized in that moment he had misunderstood what help really means. So he got really upset. He had a big flare up, right? And he was shaking and then he says, I don't want to do it anymore, right? I said, okay, I just want your best. Is this work your best quality work? He said, yes. and I know him. I know that's not true, right? I said, are you proud of your work today? Look at the paper. I want you to relook at it. Are you proud of your work today? Is it your best? He said, yes. I said, then put your name on it. Shit.
Write your name on it. He refused to write his name on it and had an emotional outburst. That's really shifting to the soul because that's basically telling you that deep down in his soul, he doesn't want to own that work. He doesn't want to claim it. He's already answered his own question, but that conflict, because he's 4, and the whole time sitting there, I said, it's really simple. You can sit here and do a better job. Give me your best, and I'll accept no less. Or You can tell me this is your best. You're proud of it. Put your name on it and you can be done. You can go. If you really want to go, write your name on it and you can go. Refused to write his name on it. Sat there and decided to suffer and cry and have outbursts. Yes. You know, and that's really profound. And that's something that right now you can't process, right? But after a day or two, it gives me the opportunity to sit down and review that day for him to understand, right? And it's just repetitive over and over and over for them to understand because it's confusing. And every part of wisdom has different levels. So you're always going to be teaching the same lessons over and over because it gets deeper and deeper, right? It's just like yesterday when the kids were
This is wax on, wax off.
This is wax on
forever,
yeah. Everything. Patience and repetition.
Practice,
All it requires is patience and repetition. That's it. That's all any homeschooling mom needs to do. It has nothing to do with your intelligence level. All you need is the willingness to be patient and repeat yourself endlessly. And one day, after the 5th time you saying it, the 50th time, it just clicks in their mind.
Yeah.
So like yesterday, when the kids are out at the pool and they're playing. So one of the kids trips and fall. Now in a traditional school setting, right, you have a teacher's assistant or the recess lady run to help the kid. Okay, I didn't. I said, hey guys, do you see what happened? I'm talking to his peers. Your friend just fell. What should we do? And they've never been asked that before. Oh, we should ask, are you okay? Are you okay? And then he goes, yes. I said, can we do more? And she got up and she went and gave him a hug and he was fine. He was fine. But those are it seems so little, but it builds the framework of the child's understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we focus on.
It also eliminates doubt.
Yes.
From your day to day.
Yes.
If you're living with purpose and you're removing like the questions from the day as far as like, wait, what should I do now?
Yeah.
You know, with very basic like, oh, there's something to address.
Yeah.
You know, it's how do I know that it's mine to address? Because it happened right in front of me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if you saw it and you have the power to do something about it, you should.
Yeah.
But you have to plant that seed when they're really young.
Yeah.
Because as they get older, it's really hard to shift that change. And
then we all freeze. That's why it still happens.
That's why adults, you see the experiment happen all the time. That's why you see hidden footage of when someone collapses on the ground, no one does anything.
Yeah.
Why did that happen? How did that start? It's because from school, you're taught not to do anything. Let someone else do it. You know, so here if someone's crying, if I'm the one in front of the child, then I'm responsible to tending to that child, right? But when he fell, he was surrounded by other peers. They need to know they have the power. You witnessed it, you have the power to do something about it. And so I always ask the peers, what can we do, guys? Our friend is crying, what can we do? He's hurt, what can we do? Right? He did the wrong thing. Go say it yourself. That's another thing we do at the Oneness Academy. I make children handle their own conflict. So if they come to me, I said, you need to go tell him. Because you need to access your voice. You need to speak up for yourself. But usually in school, the teacher's always a mediator, and the kids just don't say anything. They just have to agree reluctantly, and you know. But they're not saying, hey, you did this to me. My 4-year-old daughter, she's 4, she will say, it's fine what you said, but I didn't like your tone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
4-year-old
she's
expressing herself.
Expressing herself,
Yeah.
because I've made her say, if you don't like something, you go say it. Because I won't be here all the time to speak for you. Neither should I speak for you.
Yeah.
You speak for yourself. You know? So
Powerful.
it is.
So powerful.
And so that's yeah.
Okay.
So that's really the purpose of learning. And especially this digital age, it's quite senseless to beat good grammar to our children when they freaking have grammar correct, autocorrect. They're going to get to a point where they're barely going to pick up a pencil. They're just going to dictate everything. So to continue to beat that old paradigm in is just senseless. And technology and those things is not where we're lacking. It's compassion, it's empathy, it's self-understanding, it's collaboration, controlling emotion. That's where we're so in a deficit, right? So that's what I focus on with Oneness Academy. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and then what's different with us compared to other homeschools is typically they're run by moms. But once a week, it's been starting these past few weeks, is on Fridays, the dads come in. And the dads need to take ownership in the education of their own children. And we're breaking that paradigm with fathers too, is your job is not just to provide or protect.
Yeah.
You know, like we are parents, we are co-parenting.
Yeah.
So they need to step in and share their knowledge and their divine masculine and their approach and creativity to things. So the reason why I'm here talking to you is because it's Friday and my husband and the mom's husbands are over there teaching the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a chance for them to step up, bond, and understand their children. And that's also experimental and revolutionary, and I think very necessary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So for me, I've really, I'm so excited. I'm such a big fan of this because, you know, I've gone through such rabbit holes, endless, infinite rabbit holes of like how to empower people to take ownership for themselves and, you know, self-sustainability and all these endless rabbit holes that end up nowhere. It's so hard for things to be self-sustained.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for people to take responsibility for their own actions every time. And so I decided for myself a while back ago that the only way to save the world is to save myself, to free myself, to empower myself in every way that I can, to lead by example. If I want people to take responsibility for their actions, I need to take responsibility for my actions, every single one that I make. And so I want to be cautious as to what actions I take. And then when we started talking about like educating our own kids and like doing it ourselves, like with our own beliefs and like the way that it's supposed to be, you know, the way to empower ourselves, like the things you've just said and described. Oh, it's just such a load off my shoulders. It's such a load off because I'm like, okay, I don't have to save the world, you know, like I just have to be patient and play and flow. And I can actually enjoy this thing. I don't have to be under so much pressure. I don't have to live under constant anxiety, right? I can be free. And so.
Yeah. It just needs to, they say the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The next best time is now. Right? It's just that, just to simply start. Most people don't start because they're overwhelmed with the idea of starting. And that's because before they even started, they've already feared the failure of it. They think they don't know what they're doing. And the deepest question is start there. If your fear of failure, let that be the first lesson today with your kids. Like, I don't think I'm gonna do a good job. And that's the first day. The first day is school's in session. What's your vision? What's my vision? I'm afraid to start this because I feel this. What do you think? You know, and people are really afraid to go there with their children. But that creates such an open, safe space and flow and community and oneness with your children to just speak openly about that. Because if you can't model that behavior, they can't do it. Something I've been saying recently is children never do what you say. They do what you do.
Yeah.
So you can say all you want. They're essentially going to watch what you do, right? So if you can talk openly about your blockages and restrictions, they can too. They can say, hey, Mom, I'm afraid to start this because I feel this way. And then you can talk about it, right? But you have to be brave enough to take the first step. And homeschooling doesn't have to be a bunch of books and things like that, right? You just need paper or a board. You can write the math equations yourself, right? You can get the tools yourself. But remember, at the end of the day, that's the means, not the destination. You're giving them the tools and the power from within, right? And you're teaching them from your filter what you feel needs improvement in this world. So, for example, next week, so last night I was up till 1:30 a.m. because I think, especially before Friday, I think about what I want to do next week. So I was sitting there thinking about the older kids. So we got 2 older kids, right? And where they need improvement, they're naturally smart. So academically, I have no worries, right? They're right on flow. If anything, they're kind of ahead. Where they're lacking, that school cannot do and will not do, is the things that I can intuitively provide. So, for example, our plan for next week is to have them focus on learning about people with disabilities. I mean, you learn about sex ed in school, but you don't learn about people with different abilities. And so when you meet someone with a different disability, you don't know what the heck to do.
Yeah.
You don't know what perspective to have on them. And it's having them understand what kind of disabilities exist, have them have empathy, do an experiment on what it would like to live like that, and to understand. And how do you feel about someone like that? It's not to feel pity. That's not the purpose. It's to give them respect, because they're not defeated. They continue to live and go on. And that's somewhere, you have to come from a place of respect. And so that's something that we want to focus on. We want to focus on emotion, identifying emotion. We want to focus on social manners and awareness, right? When you see someone sad, do you continue to play on your iPad, right? I have one simple saying in my house: people over iPad, right? Man over machine. So when they're holding a device and someone's upset, I say man over machine. They know to put the device down and look at the person, right? But that's not taught. It can't be taught. That's not the purpose of school. Let's be clear about that. Traditional public school, that's not their purpose.
Sure.
Right? The purpose is to have them good, excellent workers, not healthy, open human beings, right? That's why the workplace is so toxic.
Right.
Right? So everyone has a diploma in academics, but workplace is the most toxic place you can be, because no one has worked on their inner self. They can type really fast, but they can't type anything worth compassion, right? So that's what we're trying to focus on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it seems like, it couldn't have been easy. Obviously, you said how it started with the birth of your son, and things have been evolving ever since. How old is your son now?
He is turning 7.
Okay, so this has been 7 years. Wow, I like that. 7 years coming, and it just started kind of picking up more momentum, right? Because we had been talking about it, but your kids weren't really of age, and it was more like a little bit. But now you've somehow summoned a bunch of other kids.
Right when they hit school age. Because
see.
before they were in school age, right? And I can tell other moms that have similar age children, but they thought what I was doing at home was too advanced.
I see.
Right? And while they're focusing on A and B and C, what I was doing with my daughter, they felt was too advanced. But the proof now...
Even though it was so simple.
Even though it was so simple.
Right.
Yeah. The proof now lies in my daughter, if it was advanced or not. My 4-year-old now goes throughout the day, and she's fine. And at night will come sit to me and tell, can I tell you something you did today that made me upset? And she's 4. So was it too advanced? Like, she's kind of the proof. And it was completely experimental, right? At what I was doing with her. And she still has human emotions. She's a human being, right? She has rage, anger, whatever, right? But she has a very strong voice. She's gentle and she's aggressive. She's everything. She's free.
Yeah.
She's sovereign, right? So she can play equally with dolls as she can with cars. And so that's what I was working with her all this time for 4 years. And I just started on the math and stuff at 4. And the kids that went to learn those things earlier are actually behind her. The reason why they're behind her is simply because an ingredient she had was confidence. And it's because I had built the 3-4 years confident in herself. She wasn't intimidated or didn't have blockers in her mind like other kids. So other kids who went to preschool who learned stuff before her, right? Came in and she caught up and is now ahead of them simply because she had the emotional tools to deal with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't have to think things through too far to see where this is going. Where as far as like, if kids learn to address their blockages before they become blockages, they're free flowing.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever even seen what that looks like as an adult.
No.
So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And, you know, myself and one of the other moms, we've observed public school socialization. And for the most part, it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy. Kids make fun of each other, they bully each other. She was secretly watching on the playground while her son was chasing after another boy, and he fell down. Her son walked up to help him, and the kid kicked him in the chest really hard. And she watched that happen, and she watched no one do anything about it. Nobody. And that essentially is the problem with the world, isn't it? And so he was already academically advanced. So we brought him home, continued that advancement. We go according to their speed, but we focused on him communicating and talking and speaking up. And at home we foster non-discrimination, non-prejudice, patience. You know, our 4-year-olds understand what the word patience means. And if you ask our 4-year-olds what does patience mean, they'll tell you it means waiting happily. And it's really profound. It's such an easy definition, right? My daughter, before she goes to bed, she goes, good night, Daddy, good night, Mommy, good night, Ethan, good night, myself, because we taught her that, good night, myself, I am blessed. She says that every night. And if you ask her what does blessed mean, she goes, that means my life is happy and has love.
What?
You know? Yeah, and that's what we should be teaching our kids.
Yeah.
That's what we should be teaching our kids. And so that's
so simple.
It's so simple.
It's so simple.
And it's not hard.
Yeah.
It's not hard. The work starts with you.
Yeah.
So,
but it's obviously you manifested this. This has been a long time. You had to set things up, right? It wasn't just like, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna start teaching my kids about. You don't even know where to start.
No, I didn't know where to start. It just started with me pulling my son out of school one day.
Yeah.
And now he's at home, and I can't just let him sit there and do nothing all day, right? So he kept me on my toes, and he was my purpose. He became my purpose. And just focusing and feeling him and empathizing with him and trying to see the world through his eyes. Just meditating is like, what is it like to be 4? If you try really hard, you can bring yourself back to that moment and you can remember what the world was like. Right? You can. And when you remember what the world was like, you know how to maneuver it and go around it. And then shortly after, my nephews moved in. Then I had more kids. And then 2 more nephews moved in. So then I had more kids, right? And then I had kids across the street. And then, so all of a sudden, more and more kids were just kind of around my sphere. And that it just flew. It just flowed. I don't know. What a purposeful life. But I wake up to a great purpose. There's nothing better and more important than raising good human beings. It sounds so stupid simple, right? I mean, it's like there's no more important job
there isn't
than to teach souls self-love and love for others. Everything else simply doesn't matter. If they're not the greatest writer, there is infinite other jobs they can do. And if they're not good artists, there are infinite other jobs they can do. If they're not good at math, I'm terrible at math. I've still found a divine purpose. So there's something for everyone. But essentially, it doesn't matter what particular intellect that you excel in if you don't have the emotional and conscious tools, right? And public school is never going to teach that. It's not their job. It's your job, right? And so I'm just asking every parent to seek within themselves the real education. Yeah. Essentially, souls, what did we really come here to learn? We didn't come here to learn a perfect email memo. That's not the purpose. That's not our divine purpose as a soul, right? And we need to remember that when we approach the teaching of other children.
Wow. Well, I gotta tell you, Jade, this has been very empowering.
Thank you.
I'm really glad that we set this up. Like I said, I want to do it over and over again. And I want to expand our evolution through the Oneness Academy, because these kids are getting older, new kids are coming in. This is an experiment, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And I'm really excited, to keep up to date with this. And I know people listening to watching this are super excited. This resonates with everybody on many levels, because really deep down, everybody knows that a lot of the issues that we're having as adults stemmed from our childhood, and we can point fingers all day long, right? Mm-hmm. But to see something like this, it's really empowering for me, enlightening, and I'm really excited to see how things play out. There's so many things to be excited about nowadays, and this is just more icing and cherries, lots of them. Yeah.
I hope it motivates everyone out there, and if they have any questions, they can ask.
They can
us.
comment.
They can
reach
comment.
out.
Yeah. The key is to simply start, and
you can email us at support@oneness.is.
Yeah. Just start. Ask yourself, what's the theme today? And it can be anything, and that anything you can use to teach anything. Okay? So it can be gardening, it can be sports, it can be board games. And we use board games just to teach kids how to be good winners and how to lose graciously. And it's hard. You see them struggling at a young age, losing. There's the anger and the rage coming out. And our toddlers, when they lose, they shake hands, good game. We take that for granted. So everything is a tool to excel their awareness of the world. Be healthy human beings. Just start.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. We'll end it right there.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
Yay.